once again to Strange Planet. And on this episode, a new documentary on the secret nature of reality. It's going to be premiering at the 7th annual MidWest WeirdFest. It's a feature-length film. It's called Code 12, directed and presented by my guest, Melissa Tittl. She is the star and host of the popular TV series UFO Witness, former head of content and development at the Gaia network, and an established journalist, producer, and documentarian. The film festival takes place at the Micon Cinemas in downtown Eau Claire, Wisconsin from March 3rd to the 5th. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Melissa Tittl to Strange Planet. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. First of all, I have to say the documentary, it's beautifully shot, and the locations, it's very exotic looking. And so, kudos to you. It's a beautiful film to look at.
Oh, thank you. Finding those locations and, filming at it's like certain times of the day was challenging, but, I just had this look, like I wanted it to have this look of like Indiana Jones with the dust coming up and the, fast cars and motorcycles and all that kind of stuff.
But no snakes.
No
snakes.
I don't necessarily like snakes, but I'm not the same. I don't have the same fear as Indiana Jones with snakes.
All right. The film begins with a dream, a recurring dream you've had since like childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
The thing is, when people say they've had reoccurring dreams, it's usually something terrifying. They had some kind of nightmare type of thing, but this was just something weird that I would always envision. And it got to the point where I had it so many times that I could count the amount of circles. It was I was in the center of these consistent circles that were happening. As I got into my journalistic career and I was producing all sorts of shows, I was always looking for like, well, what is this dream that I'm having? Is there anything that I can glean from any of the books I'm reading, the people I'm researching or interviewing? And I felt that, and I feel this about a lot of people, that they have some message, they have some dream, or they have something that happens in their life and they keep wondering and they keep spinning around their head. And I guess I'm no different, and this was mine, and it led me on this journey to figure out not only what that was and why the universe is speaking to me about it, but what it means for everyone else.
Right. So these are concentric circles, which, as it turns out, have a pretty consistent, well, there's a pattern there. I mean, the film is about patterns, pattern recognition. These concentric rings have a connection to ancient sites. But you were directed to Maria Wheatley, excuse me, I think I've spoken to her a number of times. She's known for her work on Stonehenge. What led you to really reach out to Maria Wheatley, first of all?
Well, I've known Maria for a long time. I love her work. I think a lot of the work that she doesn't make it on TV. I've produced the first 5 seasons of Ancient Aliens. I've been in this world for a long time. And my most fascinating conversations with Maria are off camera. It's just that they never make it to these mainstream shows. And I found this book, really old book. I don't even know how it came across my desk. It was a book from like, I don't know, late 50s or something. It was like patterns, and is literally called just Patterns. And it was like this dusty cover. There's nothing on the top. It was a hard covered book. I have no idea how I made it on my desk. And it showed all of these concentric circles around these ancient stone circles, not just Stonehenge, but other ones across the world that they've discovered. And the author went on and on about how they propagate and move. And I thought, oh, this is up Maria Wheatley's alley. I mean, this is what she talks about. So I called her and we talked about it in depth. And I said, I think that this is part of a really large network. I don't think that it's just one site, or I think they're all connected somehow. And she, this isn't in the documentary, but she's like, oh, okay, well, let me know. She's like, I'll call you in a bit and see if I see anything that or find anything in my research that coincides with what you're trying to say. And then she did. She called me back and she said, I think you're onto something. I think that this is all of these sites have this pattern, and that's how they connect to each other.
Stonehenge, the pyramids. Can you give me some other examples, or give my listeners some other examples where these concentric rings, not only just the rings, but they're connected by 12 different lines, I think, through the almost like a web. Where does this
Right.
repeat aside from the pyramids and Stonehenge?
Well, Angkor Wat, some Native American sites, places in Peru, Mexico, obviously ancient Egypt. There's some other sites. There's some islands, the Canary Islands, Azores, Romania. I mean, like, it's everywhere. So the thing that what I uncovered is that it's just not that physically these patterns are emerging on Earth, and these places where these ancient temples and stone circles have kind of hit points on these nodes that kind of control these concentric circles, is what Marie and I were talking about. Is that I started to see this pattern everywhere in spirituality and religious texts and ancient texts, in carvings all over the world. And people would, they'd be like, oh yeah, and there's this circle thing, over here. But I started to be like, okay, wait, why are these ancient people marking this all over the world, in all different cultures, in all different religious, spiritual texts, and ancient texts? And what's the point? So that just led me further on the journey of there's got to be something else besides, okay, maybe there's some kind of, they're emanating some kind of frequency and that's how they're connected. But to take that further, why is everybody putting them in everything? What is the point? And so that gets me deeper into, wait, maybe what I've tapped on is some kind of universal understanding of our place in the universe.
All right, and we'll get deeper into this journey when we come back. Melissa Tittl stays with us as we discuss Code 12, which again is premiering at the 7th Annual MidWest WeirdFest. I love the name of that festival, the MidWest WeirdFest. That's happening March 3rd to the 5th. We'll give you details in a moment. Stay with us.
Every new season, we find a reason to improve our lives and our health. And C60 Evo organic edible oils deliver noticeable benefits quickly. A spoonful in the morning delivers energy and endurance all day long. And I sleep deeper and wake up feeling refreshed because C60 ESS60 works. Carbon 60 received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996 when it was used for industrial applications. C60 Evo's ESS60 is a breakthrough technology upgrading C60 to be safe for human and pet consumption. ESS60 has been called a miracle molecule because of the physical and mental benefits people are enjoying. Their lab has a proven track record of 31 years and thousands of happy customers across the world, just like me. So treat yourself, your friends, and your family to C60 Evo and use my link, EVRS, to get 10% off your first order. Again, my link, EVRS, to get 10% off your first order.
Melissa Tittl, you'll know her from her work as head of content and development at the Gaia network, and also her work producing Ancient Aliens, star and host of the popular TV series UFO Witness, and her film Code 12, again premiering 7th Annual MidWest WeirdFest, and that is happening at the Micon Cinemas in downtown Eau Claire, Wisconsin from March 3rd to the 5th of 2023, the culmination of 10 years worth of research. So I don't want to give, obviously you don't want to give too much away here. We want people to see the film, and you'll tell us how we can see it if we don't get down to Eau Claire. What what conclusions did you, or can you hint at least, what energy might be responsible, energy source for providing or for producing these? I think I think Maria referred to them as halo patterns.
Hmm. Well, that's a complicated answer, but of course, as you said, I want people to see the film. There's natural forms of this on the planet, and again, back to the conversation of obviously ancient people built these temples or stone circles to kind of maximize the energy coming from these natural points on Earth. But it's not just the concentric circles. The concentric circles are part of a much bigger possible situation happening on this planet. And this is something that has been, this concept that I'm about to tell you is something that's been depicted in, the idea of the Matrix, a simulated universe, the idea that something has created our current situation, and we're kind of stuck here. This kind of concept, this is an ancient concept. There's lots of people that go back and they talk about the Anunnaki. They talk about different gods and goddesses controlling the whereabouts of humans and all that kind of stuff. What the reason why it's called Code 12 is that what I discovered, kind of going off of this, okay, maybe there's this idea of these temples and pyramids and all that kind of stuff connected, but how? And if they were, besides the idea of connecting things by frequency, which is pretty general, right? That doesn't really tell us how they worked or how it worked. There would have to be some kind of network. And if there was some kind of network, how did it work? And that just led on the path of this idea that if there was this network, who controlled it? And is it still working today? And not to give away some parts of the film, but I discovered 2 codes in most of these temples. A lot of people have watched the Da Vinci Code, and that plays a part in a lot of these ancient mysteries, talking about the Da Vinci Code, talking about pi and phi and how all these temples are aligned to that. And that is true, which is very fascinating. Of course, we don't really necessarily have an answer for why that is, but the other thing is in these temples, there is another code that was the original building structure, and the way that it was designed has another code on top of this other one that a lot of us know about, that are especially into ancient mysteries. And I started to question, well, why are there necessarily 2 forms of information unless one came previously, and then someone came in and reprogrammed all these temples and pyramids and locations so that they could create, or they could control the nodes of the planet. And of course, that sounds a little crazy, but this documentary really reveals on a scientific level how not only could we be living in a simulated universe, but there could possibly be a way out.
These nodes, as you call them, and these this system or network of ancient monuments or locations that contain these halo patterns. I mean, is it too much of a stretch to call it almost like a radio network? In other words, were they in communication? Were they transmitting to one another?
I mean, that is the theory. Again, how that works specifically, we're not sure. But if you go into the 100th monkey research, there's a really old book. A lot of people refer to it when they were talking about consciousness. There's this kind of invisible field that this research discovers. Studied monkeys in a small island in Japan, and there's mainland monkeys. And they noticed that somehow the understanding of of these monkeys on the island, knowing how to eat a sweet potato, somehow transferred in consciousness to the mainland of Japan. So that wasn't because one monkey went over there on a boat and told everybody how to eat this sweet potato. Now, you're probably thinking, why are we talking about monkeys in Japan and sweet potatoes right now? It's important because I think when people start to talk about how do these temples transfer energy and there's no radio tower or anything like that, we're really thinking on a concept level of a morphogenic field that is information is put into that field and people pick it up and all of a sudden it becomes their zeitgeist. So if we go back to this famous research study where they were just focusing on one thing that was happening on one island with monkeys and then somehow transferred to the mainland, they proved that there's some kind of morphogenic field that these animals, these monkeys, are somehow transferring information, and it just gets picked up by these monkeys in the mainland. So how does that transfer to humans? If humans or non-humans, right, that's open for discussion, created these temples and monuments to control these nodes on the planet that had lots of energy coming from them, and they programmed those temples and pyramids and structures and stone circles to have certain information, the idea is that they would start to control that morphogenic field, which is part of what we pick up in our consciousness and how we understand things and pick up thoughts and ideas as humans. And it really feeds into the whole idea of there's no such thing as original thought because, came from somewhere type of idea.
Right. I mean, I speak with inventors. I love interviewing inventors. And one of the things that comes up again and again is they always say, first you invented in the dream world, and then you invented in reality. Tesla said the same thing. So I guess that's what they're tapping into, the morphic field, or some may call it, the Akashic Record, same thing?
Well, the Akashic Records is kind of the concept of that you are eternal, and therefore everything that you have done and that you will do and that you'll do in some other life and that you've done in some other life is all recorded in some kind of record keeping number system, and that you can tap into it, tap into different timelines, if you will. But that's not necessarily the same, but it is in the concept of like we're on the planet and there is a morphogenic field that humans connect to, not the same ones as monkeys, but there is a connection there, and we can put things in that field and we can grab them. It's really interesting that we are, as a society, debating how this new revolution of AI is about to come out with Chat GPT and all the other organizations scrambling to make one even better. If you think about it, that AI program just grabbed things from our field that we created in the digital world of all of us talking. It then was able to create a understanding of how humans talk. So everything that is on this planet in some form operating in our system is connected in some kind of morphogenic field.
Melissa, sit tight. We'll come back and discuss further.
November reminds us to be thankful and focused on boosting our radiant health before winter. And I use a potent remedy that's improved the quality of my life and deepened my sleep as well. I take C60 Evo olive oil every morning, and I have a lot more energy and mental focus all day long. My workouts are easier, and I have a lot more endurance. If you're into competitive sports, this is a game changer. Health is our greatest wealth, and Pura C60 ESS60 really works. ESS60 is a breakthrough technology delivering the carbon-60 miracle molecule for humans and pets. Check out the C60 Evo holiday gift collections for everyone on your list. They make amazing skin, lip, and hair repair serum that deliver noticeable results quickly. C60 Evo's lab has an impressive track record of 31 years and, of course, my personal recommendation. You deserve the best remedies on earth, and so do those you love. Buy direct from the lab and upgrade your life today. Use my code EVRS to save 10% off your first order. Again, my code EVRS and save 10% off your first order.
And we are back with Melissa Tittl, and the film is Code 12. Again, that is premiering at the 7th Annual MidWest WeirdFest. That's at the Micon Cinemas in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, March 3rd to the 5th. If we're not in Eau Claire, Melissa, how are we going to get to watch Code 12?
Well, it's a brand new film, so it hasn't been released yet on a network, but hopefully that'll be soon. If you do not get to Eau Claire, you can go to Roswell, New Mexico the following weekend, which is March 11th. And there's a film festival there called UFO Expo, and they will also be playing the film. And then you'll just have to stay tuned for what network picks it up.
All right. The subtitle or the log line or what have you of the film, Code 12, Atlantis left a code behind. You want to just tease us a little bit with what Atlantis might have to do with all of this?
Oh, good old Atlantis. We always go back to this part of where we think everything was perfect. So Atlantis is this understanding that there was an ancient civilization of humans, non-humans, beings that were enlightened, that existed way before the time that we really understand where we are now as a human species. And, some people say that was 10,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago or 200,000 years ago. But the thing is, what Atlantis represents to me is something way before us, was way advanced, no matter how many years ago it was. And it lived and those people lived on this planet and had some kind of civilization. So in all these places that we talk about in the documentary, and there's so many more, but this was the main ones that kind of unraveled this code. They have remnants of something more ancient. And Atlantis, the story goes, the myth, if you will, that somehow some groups of people within Atlantis decided to be too greedy and misuse the power that they had, some kind of technology, and it crumbled and fell to the ground, or Zeus blew it up, or whatever. And then that kind of left us putting all the pieces together. So Atlantis is part of this because what they knew is left behind in all of these temples and structures. This code that we talk about in the film is not of the last 10,000 years. It's something much older. And it got passed down to some of these priesthoods and priestesses and structures and concepts and spirituality and religion. But it just wasn't really understood. It's buried beneath all the words and texts and symbols all over the place, because ancient people passed that on, and it got kind of muddled, and it just kind of lost in the sauce. But that's why Atlantis is part of this, because whatever was before what we have right now knew how it works, how the structure works, and how to get out of it and come back and forth from it. And right now we're operating in, this is what the documentary talks about. We were operating in a lower understanding of our human potential. And we're kind of locked in a system that just keeps continually going in an infinity structure. Like we just never get out of it. You see it all the time. If you just go into news, you just think about like, okay, well, back in the 60s, everybody was like, that's it, make love, not war. We don't want to do this anymore. And then you have the new people today being like, everything's so horrible. We need to change everything. But it keeps recycling. There's no new actual structures and thoughts being formed. They're stuck in the system. And what Atlantis, or whatever they were called, or whatever they were, had a different kind of structure and a different understanding. And there was a way to expand, where I feel right now, the way we live, that's not the case, because we're kind of stuck into something else.
So this is the Hindu Wheel of Life, and Code 12 is our ticket to escape the Hindu Wheel of Life?
Yes. We are taught that if you believe in karma, you believe in life after death, you believe that you live many lives, you believe this is it. That's all a set structure around death. But if you really read all of the spiritual ancient texts, and I'm talking about all of them, not just some, all of them, they're really talking about, buried beneath their rhetoric, eternity, that understanding the gods and the goddesses, or God, or whatever you want to call it, is about understanding your human potential, that you are eternal, and that death doesn't really exist for your existence. It's just a confine that we have created within our structure.
Do we have free will in this matrix?
Well, we are programmed to think that we do. But unless you're aware of how it works, your idea of free will is just programmed.
So it's the illusion of free will.
It's the illusion of free will, just like it's the illusion of freedom, or it's the illusion of democracy, right?
Right.
They're all sort of illusions within structures that make us feel like we have choices. But unless we know how it really works, and how the universe actually expands and creates itself, we are just programmed to make those decisions. That's why there's so many things out there called like game theory, right? Where there's so many probabilities based on the decision making of the structures or the emotions, right? And that makes things more predictable. But if you're operating outside those lines, then one, you're not predictable, and two, you're not controlled.
So is this simulation of this matrix, is it like, I mean, can we take that video game analogy to the next level? I mean, are there, if my 16-year-old boys were here, they would give me the proper verbiage here, but they play something called, they play the game, or they can also play with other friends.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other beings, let's say, that can participate in this virtual video game, just for kicks, maybe?
That's a really good question. As you've introduced me, like I've done a lot of alien stuff, and I always tell people when I get interviewed, they say, "Okay, well, are you in this because you had an experience?" And I said, "No, I think the alien conversation is a human potential conversation, because if we figure out something is not human, what does that make us?" Now, when I interview people about their experiences or their abduction or all of that, the one thing that comes across is fear, because we don't know how they operate. How can they come in between walls and things, and how can they control time and paralyze people and humans and somehow control the universe we're in? I think that if you understand how the universe works, you can come in and out of this dimension of existence. We understand 2D, we're in 3D, we understand how 2D works, and we can jump into 2D and do whatever we want into it all the time. So just think, if you are a being that operates in those other sets of dimensions, it would be easy for you to come here and move some stuff around. And I think that why not, right? I mean, that conversation could go on forever. Like, is it would they just come here, like you said, for kicks? Is this like a Westworld thing where they come here and play with all the humans and go home? Or is it control? And if it's control, then there's something they're trying to control that we don't know that we have, that's so powerful.
So let me just riff on the Matrix a little bit, and which is, I mean, the franchise is just steeped in Gnostic symbolism and so forth. are the architects of this matrix, could we liken them to, let's say, the demiurges of the Gnostic tradition?
In Code 12, or are you just saying in general the idea of a matrix?
The idea of the matrix that we're living in.
Yeah, I don't think that, I do come to some kinds of conclusions in this Code 12 of the idea of the demigods, and one in particular, I don't want to spoil it, that has sort of created this simulation. But I think that that the gods and the goddesses are definitely one of two things. One, they know how to come in and out. That's why they're gods and goddesses, right? That's why as humans that don't know how it works, they're like, oh my God, wow, that's so cool. How do they do that? I don't think all of them are controlling it. I think that the matrix is the franchise is really trying to explain how a coded structure works with a biological structure, and using spiritual symbolism to kind of dictate that is what they're trying to do, and they're not far off.
You also speak with geneticists in the film. So what is the connection between our DNA and Code 12?
Well, this was pretty fascinating. This was something I just stumbled upon. This is why I always think things work in mysterious ways. Somebody had handed me this paper that this geneticist had written, and on the front had these concentric circles and all these lines coming out of it, and it looked like my dream, right? I was like, this is so weird, but it's kind of like looking at the top of a DNA strand in a 2D form. You're like looking down on it, right? And so I started reading this, and he goes into this paper goes into the fact that this is proof. There's proof now. It's not just some story that people talk about where that somehow somebody screwed our DNA up. That we have the potential for 12 strands of DNA, but we only have 3. They're only operating on 3. And he, in the documentary, he goes into that a little bit more in detail about what that means and how it works and all that kind of stuff. But this he's working in his own accord. This isn't my research until I came across him. I thought, wow, not only am I discovering that there's this other code that exists in these temples, but we literally have all this DNA that has kind of work we can't use, we can't activate. And it's not just junk DNA. There's so much junk DNA we have that we don't know how to activate. But this is a certain step that is somehow turned off that we should have as humans.
When you're in an ancient site, whether it's Stonehenge, and incidentally, I didn't ask you this, are these concentric rings, are they present at Göbekli Tepe?
Yes, they are actually. They are. I mean, the whole setup of Göbekli Tepe is a circle, and then there's other structures in the middle, right? And they come out, and then Göbekli Tepe is not even uncovered yet, right? They've only gotten, I don't know, 30% of it on that you can actually see. They're still trying to scrape away the dust, which means there might be other structures that are coming out from that. But that's just physical, right? Like they're creating these physical structures that are circle, but there's symbolism too. And I think the symbolism has to do with how that's controlling the structure of time and space.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, just that. That's it.
I was about to ask you before I got sidetracked with Göbekli Tepe, and that is the concentric rings. When you're in these or near these ancient structures, assuming that they're still active, and I guess that's another whole question. Is there any effect on our DNA?
Ooh, that is a really good question. The hard part about this conversation is that we are just now gathering technology to kind of uncover these thoughts, right? These hypotheses, if you will. There's a research study that I cannot talk about on this podcast, but it will come out soon, where they are studying people's effect in a trance or meditative state within places that have a structure that is created for humans to get into that space. And they have seen some dramatic changes in DNA, which is amazing. So you have to think about it. If you're an ancient person, or you're from Atlantis, and you're highly, you have this capability of creating this amazing technology, then you would create these structures that could emanate a certain frequency, and then that frequency could change the DNA. And most people, when they go to some of these sites, they feel something, right? It's just that we are just coming to the point now where we can start to measure that. We can say, okay, people feel something, that's great. But like, what happens when they spend the night in the Great Pyramid? What happens, people say when they spend the night, they see things and they feel different, or some people say they've been healed. That is a change of the DNA. That's the changing of a cellular structure within the body. So I think that this conversation is going to get more in depth and a solid answer on that very soon, because we're finally getting the technology, and people are putting more resources into figuring out if that is true, because not because people want to know if ancient temples can heal people, but I think they really are on that human potential journey. So on that human potential journey, let's put some money into really seeing if something happens to somebody internally when they're in these temples or these sites or these places that people feel something. And so physical proof, I think, is right around the corner.
Sounds like the subject for your next documentary, perhaps. Code 12 Part 2. We don't want to rush it because it's just out now, Code 12. And again, that is premiering at the Micon Downtown Cinema in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, part of the MidWest WeirdFest, March 3rd to the 5th. And this particular screening is Saturday, March the 4th at 6 p.m. And you'll be there to introduce the film, and you'll be taking Q&A, and I know there'll be lots of questions. Melissa, great pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for this.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe at strangeplanetpodcast.com.